You're experiencing violence right now. Just being housing insecure, just being by food insecure, you're experiencing violence right now. I don't see the police going to the homes of millionaires and billionaires that are pushing the system to be this way in order to lock them up for the violence that they perpetuate against you. I'd love to see police go into Vanguard and BlackRock and State Street offices, put the CEOs in handcuffs for the system that they perpetuate in order to make sure that you are suffering. But they won't do that. They'll never do that. Why? Because they're the goons. They're the muscle of these people who keep this system in place so that you and I continuously suffer. They keep our hands locked so that we have no recourse but to be slaves to the system that they benefit from. Laughing at your pain. Police officers are supposed to be the protectors of citizens, but as we've seen throughout history, that hasn't been the case. So, because of that, I want to show you guys this. So who is this? This is Jaahnavi Kandula. Jaahnavi Kandula was a 23-year-old from Andhra Pradesh in India. She was on her way to receiving her master's degree from Northeastern University in South Lake Union. She came to the United States from the city of Bengaluru on a student exchange program in 2021, and she was going to graduate this December. Her life was cut short by Officer Kevin Dave in Seattle in January of this year. So let me share with you guys Kevin Dave. So this is Officer Kevin Dave. He was driving at 74 miles per hour when he hit her. And he struck Jaahnavi, and she was taken to Harborview Medical Center, where she died a short while from her injuries. Now, after hearing this horrible story, there was another officer that caught wind of what had happened. And this was Detective Daniel Otterer, who you see here. So this is Detective Daniel Otterer. And Detective Daniel Otterer has some things to say regarding the death of this young student that was murdered. So I'm going to be sharing what Officer Otterer said. This is going to be, it's going to make a lot of people angry, as it should, because remarks like this should not be said of someone who's supposed to be protecting and serving citizens. So he's going to be recounting the story, so we're going to get into that.
Initially, he said she was in a crosswalk. There's a witness that says, no, she wasn't. But that witness could be different because I don't think she was thrown 40 feet either. She is dead. a regular person. Yeah.
First of all, the fact that he laughed at the fact that she's dead, right? That's already ridiculous for him to do. That's already disheartening, and it makes you question his frame of mind by laughing at her being killed. First of all, who laughs at that from about somebody who they don't know, that to our knowledge has never harmed anyone? Who laughs at that? What kind of person is that? What kind of person is Officer Otterer? Is this the type of people that we have protecting us? Let's continue.
Yeah, just write a check. Just yeah, $11,000. She was 26 anyway. She had limited value.
Let's go back over that again.
Yeah, just write a check. Just yeah, $11,000. She was 26 anyway. She had limited value. Initially,
she was 26 anyway. She had limited value. What kind of mind does it take to devalue the life of someone? What type of mind does it take when you do not possess the empathy to feel for that person? Shouldn't the people who are tasked with our public safety, shouldn't they be empathetic individuals? Shouldn't they be people who hear stories like this, and shouldn't it really affect them in their heart? When we hear stories like this, if it doesn't anger you, then the system did its job. Because if you're apathetic when it comes to stories like this, I think you need to look inward and to ask yourself, what's wrong with me? Why isn't this something that doesn't bother me at all? He basically joked about her death. He demeaned and insulted her murder. Said she basically had little value. Is there any reason why people like us say ACAB, all cops are bad? The institution of policing does not care and has not ever cared about us. This institution encourages the idea that because, you're someone who's poor or you're someone who is of a marginalized group, that you don't matter. That because you do not have private property or millions or billions of dollars, then you're just a casualty of the process. You got to break a few eggs to make an omelet, right? This was a life, man. A life. I would like to share just a little bit more about her. So this is talking about her. A little bit more about Kandula. She was the daughter to a single mother who taught elementary school. Reportedly, her mother took on financial debt so that Kandula could travel to the United States to pursue her master's degree. Single mom. Put herself in debt. This is from her uncle. Says her priority was to help her family. And people are saying the officer was driving 50 miles an hour. No, it's 74 miles an hour. The officer was on the way to a report of an overdose when he hit Kandula at the intersection of Dexter Avenue North and Thomas Street. Her body was thrown more than 130 feet. This continues, says a massive outrage broke out after the Seattle Police Department released footage from the accused officer Daniel Otterer's body camera on Monday, which he can be heard joking and laughing about the incident. In a video clip, Otterer, who serves as vice president of the Seattle Police Officers Guild, was reportedly talking about the accident in a call with the Guild's president, Mike Sloan. He laughed several times after saying, "She is dead." Toward the end of the clip, the officer can be heard saying, "Yeah, just write a check. $11,000. She's 26 anyway. She had limited value." This wasn't just some low-ranking police officer. This was a detective. This is the system that they perpetuate, that they continuously guard over, without having any regard to anybody's life. The fact remains that ACAB is a valid acronym. And the fact is that people like this man, this guy, is dangerous. So let me continue. So the government of India actually got word of this, and they demanded a probe. It says, meanwhile, India on Wednesday demanded a thorough investigation into the incident amid the uproar. Because you got to remember, this was an Indian citizen, not an American citizen, an Indian citizen, an immigrant that was getting her education so that she can help out her family. Basically everything that they ask immigrants to do. Come here, get an education, get a good job, help out your family. The American dream, basically. Quote, recent reports, including the media, of the handling of Ms. Jaahnavi Kandula's death and road incident in Seattle in January are deeply troubling. We have taken up the matter strongly with local authorities in Seattle and Washington State, as well as senior officials in Washington, D.C., for a thorough investigation and action against those involved in this case. The consul and embassy will continue to closely follow up on this matter with all concerned authorities. That's from the Consulate General of India in San Francisco. So the country of India is actually looking into it now because the officers basically look at the life so poorly. This is a culture that cannot be redeemed. And this is a culture that has to be done away with. Because is it a culture of death? That's what it is. So there was a gentleman on TikTok that actually talked about this as well. And he shared basically the same thing that I did. The only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead a little bit. Let me see. 28. All right. And so my feelings reflect the same as his. And so he says it better than I could. So let's go.
The voice you heard in that clip was Detective Daniel Otterer of the Seattle Police Department. Auderer. I can't imagine being so void of compassion and empathy that just hours after a tragedy, you're cackling maniacally about what happened and laughing as you tell whoever's on the other end of that conversation to just cut a check for $11,000 because the life of that 26-year-old woman was less valuable. And from everything that I read, she came here in 2021 to pursue her version of the American dream and get that master's degree and further her education and put herself in a better position to be successful. And she was 3 fucking months away from graduating and doing that. As a father myself, all I will say is that if I was the father of Jaahnavi Kandula and I ever came face to face with Detective Daniel Otterer, I would likely be spending my remaining years behind bars. It will always and forever be ACAB, and there are no exceptions.
Absolutely. So this is why we need to defund the police on the way to about abolition, because these psychopaths should not be in charge of our public safety. They're not safe to be around or to be carrying guns and a badge in public. Now, as many of you know, as an abolitionist, I want to share this with you guys as well. You guys know exactly where I'm going with this. Make sure to share far and wide. 10 demands for justice. The road to abolition. Says 10 demands for justice envisions a new society which prisons and police are no longer necessary and communities are equipped to provide for their own health and safety. 10 demands for justice offers a roadmap for the defunding and then full abolition of police and prisons, beginning with the immediate actions to end police violence as well as racism and classism in policing, prosecution, and sentencing. And so if you go over the demands, there's 10 of them that you can share with your neighbors, with your friends, co-workers, everyone, because this needs to end. These type of people who are constantly and consistently undermining and demeaning our lives should not be running our public safety apparatus in this nation. These are the same people that get trained by the IDF who do the exact same tactics in Israel against Palestinian people. And so when we talk about wanting true public safety, it means away from people like Daniel Otterer. When we talk about having true public safety, it's not just enforcing the law. It's also making sure that people have adequate health care, which means a nationalization of our healthcare system. It means having housing for everyone. It means everyone having the ability to have an education without a paywall. It means everyone having healthy food readily available, clean drinking water, and a healthy environment so that they can thrive rather than just merely survive. And so these are some of the things that are absolutely necessary for true public safety, to get away from the violence that this system perpetuates on a day-to-day basis. You're experiencing violence right now. Just being housing insecure, just being food insecure, you're experiencing violence right now. I don't see the police going to the homes of millionaires and billionaires that are pushing the system to be this way in order to lock them up for the violence that they perpetuate against you. I'd love to see police go into Vanguard and BlackRock and State Street offices, put the CEOs in handcuffs for the system that they perpetuate in order to make sure that you are suffering. But they won't do that. They'll never do that. Why? Because they're the goons. They're the muscle of these people who keep this system in place so that you and I continuously suffer. They keep our hands locked so that we have no recourse but to be slaves to the system that they benefit from. This is why it is important for people like you and me to change. Change this system at its fundamental level. This is why you are important to this process. This is why websites like 10 Demands for Justice is so important. This is just like when I had the people, the organizers for ending qualified immunity in Ohio. Go ahead, look at that stream that I posted last week. How ending qualified immunity can also be in a part of the process to this. To hold people like this, like Otterer, Daniel Otterer, accountable. Because that's what's important. And no, he didn't actually do anything to the victim. But the fact is that we know his mindset. And if we know his mindset, then isn't that indicative of the mindset of many people within this institution of policing? Every single day, we continuously see in 4K how they don't care and have no regard for our lives. ACAB.